a special night in the lives of all of us. A night to be beautiful, to be desirable. A night we can break all the rules and make our own. Prom night. Everyone at Hamilton High is getting ready for prom night. It's a day of rehearsals, arrangements, final preparations, and last-minute phone calls.
Nick?
Wendy, do you still like to play games?
Oh.
They're too old for games, but someone still wants to play.
Why?
Callie, it's been a long time. Tonight, it's my turn.
Everything is on.
Tonight, someone has come to the prom alone. Someone who watches in the silent corridors.
Callie.
Someone who waits until no one can help. Prom night. If you're not back by midnight, you won't be coming home.
Hey, what's up, horror fans, geeks, freaks, nerds, turds, dweebs, basement dwellers, mouth breathers? Welcome to the R-Rated Horror Commentary Podcast, episode 20. Tonight's movie is a fan pick from 1980. It's Prom Night, starring Jamie Lee Curtis and Leslie Nielsen. Actually, I'd never seen this movie before, and it was suggested to me by one of our subscribers. And there's 4 movies in the franchise, and surprisingly, I'd never come across any of them before. I watched them all. And I just decided that this one, the original, had the most going for it. So I just decided to watch it a few times, gather my thoughts on it, pop it in on a lonely Tuesday night, and yeah, let's just crack some beers and watch it and have a good time. At a high school senior prom, a masked killer stalks 4 teenagers who were responsible for the accidental death of a classmate 6 years previously. Alright guys, I just have the original director's cut of this movie. I have it queued up about 20 seconds in. It's in this title screen is Simcoe Productions in red. So let's go ahead and count it down if you're ready. In 3, 2, 1, and play Prom Night, 1980. About 22 seconds in. So yeah, this was I like that shot, by the way. Really cool. I mean, it's just a shattered mirror or whatever, and it's like a kind of a Dutch angle and a shattered mirror or something, and it's just, I like, kind of artsy shots like that when they, kick off any kind of movie, but, yeah, this movie went up against Friday the 13th. It came out 2 months after Friday the 13th, so Friday the 13th was a slasher movie that basically kind of copied the footprint of Halloween, and so is this. And this actually had Jamie Lee Curtis in it. And they made this movie for $1.5 million, which was a good chunk of change for 1980. And it made $15 million. I mean, I think it made like 14.8 or something, which is pretty damn good considering, it had to kind of clean up after Friday the 13th, which, was a big, massive hit. So I think that's kind of why, I mean, even though this movie did really well, I think it did well at the time it came out, in that time, in that era, when slashers were like a new thing, because, Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween kind of blew the doors like wide open, right? So now they were starting to make slasher movies. And this movie came out, and then right after Friday the 13th, and I think it did really well because it was sort of like a new thing, and people were really into it. Obviously, they used Jamie Lee Curtis to help sell the movie, but what I'm saying is, it kind of got forgotten over the course of time. It didn't really hold up as a type of movie, the type of franchise. I mean, they did make 4 of them, so I guess it was a cult hit enough for them to be continual interest in it. But I'm just saying, nobody ever talks about Prom Night. Nobody ever is interested in really picking up this movie, except for maybe, more invested horror fans. Are more into the, maybe the roots of slashers or something, or more obscure slashers like myself, But it's not like a popular movie really at all. I mean, even though Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, I mean, nobody really gives a shit about this movie. It doesn't really have a lot of flavor. I mean, there's some interesting stuff. There's a lot of disco in it. It's prom night and everything. We all like prom night movies. But, I mean, come on. Everybody knows that Carrie's the prom night movie. That's the best scary prom night movie that ever existed, and that was 1976. So, yeah, this movie was just riding the coattails of Halloween and Carrie, and it was a blend of the two. It's kind of obvious, but, I mean, it's a solid movie. See, back in these days, they were like, in the early days of slashers, they were still making films, these movies as proper films in a way. They might have been low budget, but they were trying to make an actual movie. So this movie kind of has that, the slowness of a build and thoughtfulness and time putting into it. Usually the first movie of these slasher movies, if there's a big franchise, 3 or 4 movies or whatever, they're always like kind of the best ones, but this one kind of still has its toe in the waters of like actual filmmaking instead of like cheap mass-produced not really well thought out cheap sleaze. I like those movies too, don't get me wrong. I really like, say, like Summer Party Massacre 2 or I don't know, whatever, Slaughterhouse or something, but I think they kind of started to realize what the people really wanted to see, and in 1980 they didn't really know. I mean, if you think about Halloween, that movie is such a special movie because it's not a real gory movie. It's not a real flashy movie. It's very subdued. What makes that movie awesome is the ambience. It really embraces. It really is. It embodies the spirit of Halloween, of being scared on Halloween. Wearing a mask and going house to house. But there's these awful murders happening. It's just the look, the feel of the movie, the brilliance of John Carpenter, and that really is what makes it special. If you take any other, that same script and you give it to a lower rate, director, it would have been a terrible movie. It would have been forgetful, much like this. So this movie, basically my point is that, whatever, they didn't really capture any sort of special essence in this movie. I'm sure some of you who are war fans probably will disagree with me. I mean, I know a lot of people champion like the sort of ending of this movie, where you have you sort of have these sympathies towards the killer. I'll try not to give anything away. Not that it really fucking matters, but it does have some. I mean, I watched all the franchise, and I mean it was, those movies aren't really that great. I mean, 2 and 3, they sort of have their moments where you're like, they have their charms, but they're not good movies all the way through. But by any stretch of the imagination, they're flawed and they can be boring. But there might be a good kill here or there, but there's no real good consistency through all 4 movies or anything like that. And looking at them with some perspective, I really thought this was the one that had the most going for it. It was the most solid, the most respectable one, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the most respectable one for me to like it the most, but I think it has the most integrity in terms of slasher horror movie, or of just a movie in general. I mean, I'm not really going to go out my way to watch this if I wasn't compelled or motivated by some other reason. It's a very mediocre movie in my eyes, but I think it's a respected movie by horror fans, And I can understand why. It just doesn't really do anything for me. But, the one prom night movie I haven't seen is a remake. I don't think I've seen that one yet, so I'm kind of ignorant when it comes to that. But I'll get around to it eventually. Maybe after I finish this commentary, I'll go back and watch the remake. I think it was like 2006 or something. And check it out. But, if I don't have any recollection of that movie at all, when it came out only 11 years ago, when I was like, already deep in the horror and in my 20s and shit. I mean, it doesn't really bode well if I don't have it. That's another prom night movie not on my radar. Doesn't really say a lot for the movie, but I'll check it out. Just to be thorough in my understanding of the franchise. But so basically, this is kind of like a revenge movie, right? I mean, it's a simple premise. The kids were fucking around in this abandoned mental hospital or something. I don't know why there's like grade school kids running around a abandoned mental hospital. I mean, that's like some shit that fucking teenagers do, right? I mean, I used to do that in high school. We used to go out to the Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky, because that's where I'm from. We go out there and fuck around, but I mean, not in grade school. I mean, basically, you have to be able to like ride your bicycle somewhere close by. So I would chalk that up to negligent fucking parenting there. But I mean, basically, it's a revenge story. They're bullying a girl. She gets pushed out the window. She dies. The brother witnesses what happens, and it's just a catalyst for the movie. So at least they try to set up a foundation for the movie. They're trying to give this thing some legs. They don't just jump into some half-baked premise and go jump right into the gore or some bad jump scares or whatever. They're trying to give this some dramatic gravitas, if you will. They're trying to show some reality behind it. This is definitely a more. If you look at, say, something like Friday the 13th Part 3 or 4, it just, they rush getting into the plot line. They're very manufactured. They just want to get to those kills and those, it's a fun time. It's funny, I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, you're just enjoying the kids getting killed, Jason running around, and there's some humor in it. This is more like drama, this is more like a serious movie, which I can dig. I mean, I don't have any problem with that per se, but I'm just saying, like, you call it a slasher movie. I'm not so sure. In a technical sense, it's slasher like you would think of a slasher in the mid to late 80s, so, or even nowadays or whatever, but, it's a pretty slow beginning in this movie. But I think that's just indicative of the times, I mean, I don't think they had really developed, a rigid formula or any kind of formula at this point for horror movies. So, I think maybe they were just thinking at the time that, a big, a studio flick, you're going to throw $1.5 million into a script. They're going to take a more serious approach and a less flippant approach to it. They definitely homogenize down the formula that works, the sort of drive-in, the crappy drive-in horror flick movie or whatever, but one thing about this movie that kind of annoys me is it's just the way it looks. I mean, I might have a crappy copy, but I've seen this a couple times now and I've always noticed it, and it's something kind of that carried out of, it's like a filming technique that's sort of trailed out of the 70s or something, where everything sort of has this haze to it, or it's maybe like a little blown out. I don't like that. I really don't like that. I feel like it's like hard. I feel like I need to like rub my eyes or something, like it's hard. It's just, it's annoying for my eyes to watch. I just want to see a clear image, But, it's just a technique or something that they did in the late 70s or something. But, yeah, here's your first MacGuffin, right? Like, trying to distract you. Always at the crazy gardener. I wonder if that might have, like, inspired Slumber Party Massacre at all or something, like the The power tool. The dangerous stranger with a power tool. That fucking nerd, man. Fucking nerd. Yeah, that's pretty lame MacGuffin, man. They try to throw a couple at you and it just, I don't know. I mean, they have to provide you with some mystery, so keep you guessing or whatever, but... I mean, I'll be honest with you. The first time I watched this, I was just kind of like, trying to visually break it down and get into it. I didn't really know exactly who the killer was till the very end, obviously. So it does a good job, playing its cards close to the chest. Although, once you see it and you watch the whole franchise, it's painfully obvious. But, if you just sort of check out and watch the movie and let it play out, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's the killer. It wasn't like a big twist or anything, but there is a little bit of a reveal, so I have to give it some credit for, for that, some kudos for that, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, see, even this neighborhood feels very Halloweenish, but they actually filmed this in Toronto, Canada, not L.A., where they filmed the original Halloween. So, funny thing, this is, oh yeah, fucking pickup lines, fucking goober in his fucking van. This guy's such a fucking scum, dude. But it works. Anyway, that actually pretty awesome fucking 70s van there was stolen by the stunt coordinator. I don't know how they couldn't afford a van and fix it up when they have a budget of of $1.5 million, but I guess they were cutting corners or something. They stole this van and they actually ended up blowing it up later. I mean, that is pretty interesting that they would go out and do that, but a little bit of trivia for you. I guess it must have been super cheap to film up in Canada. I mean, I know Hollywood does film a lot up there, so for budgetary reasons, so they must have been trying to make an actual movie, put the money where it could be the best use. So they, went to a place where they could film in locations for cheaper and stealing vans and I don't know, maybe Jamie Lee Curtis wanted a higher salary or something. Who knows, I know that Paramount was wanting to put this movie out when they were shopping it around, but they wanted to put it on a limited release of 300 screens, and so they took it to some other smaller distributor, and they put it out on 1,200 screens. So, I mean, they obviously really wanted this thing to be successful, and by all means it was, even though it was like basically bashed by other reviewers. I think Siskel and Ebert, shit on it, basically just said it was, a ripoff of Halloween and Carrie and stuff. And I think, they were right. It's a little harsh. I mean, I think they tried to make a solid movie here, but let me turn this up a little bit. Typical dude just trying to get some ass, right? Old school TVs, man. Crazy to think that was like all we had for home entertainment back in the day, right? Like now we have these like giant 60-inch 4K ultra super flat screens, Awesome time to be alive. I love my big ass fucking TV. Old school telephones. Yeah, if you're like a millennial or, 18, 19, 20, that big plastic thing that rings, that's a phone. That's what phones used to look like. In case you didn't know. Maybe you saw one in your history book at school. Yeah, they used to plug into the wall, and they had these cords, and you could only walk out, and they're like 10 feet away. You know? You used to have like a little corkboard or notepad next to it, so you could like write down notes, you know? Oh, hey, so-and-so called for, you know, hey, Mom, so-and-so called for you at this time, and you write down the time and leave a message. You know, that was like even before they had fucking answering machines. I can still remember having an answering machine in college, man. You know, we just come home, you see that light blinking, be like, you have 6 messages, and you listen to it, and like 3 of them are debt collectors, and the other one was your girlfriend, and the other 2 were your buddies wanting to go drink that night or something. It's like, now we just have a fucking computer in our hands, man. Like I said, it's a good time to be alive, man. You guys are definitely a lucky generation. Although, you know, you don't know what you're missing at the time. You know, you don't know. It just is what it is. I mean, it used to be, you know, fuck, man, getting directions, like, just find a place. If you were going to be late, you're lost, you had to, like, go to a phone booth, call them, get directions, you know, just that kind of crazy shit, man. Now all you have to do is Google Maps it. I mean, you'll never be lost again unless you, like, wander out into the woods somewhere. Yeah, so it's this kind of stuff that really slows the movie down, makes it boring. I mean, they start the movie off with a tragedy, then they slowly start to bring you into the high school drama, you know, the high school setting. But they're bridging it with this police, you know. They're slowly introducing the characters, and they're slowly introducing the plot, and they're trying to set everything up, and it's setting up all the pieces. It's like, you know, you want to play chess or checkers with somebody, and they, like, you know, they invite you to play chess with them, and you sit down, and they're just slowly putting the fucking pieces on the board. And you're just sitting there with your arms folded. You're like, I know what's going to happen. I mean, I know how the game's... Can you just move a little faster? Can we get everything set up? Because, you know, I just want to get to playing the game, you know? I'm here to play the game. And that's what this movie is kind of like. It's just like slowly sets the pieces up. So you have to get into the... You have to allow yourself to get sucked into the movie. And it's easier to do the first time you watch it. Multiple viewings, you know, it gets a little dry, honestly. I mean, maybe smoke a bowl or something, and you might be able to play that game where you just try to, you know, see new things in the movie or something, you know, like, just to entertain yourself, like, just look at shit in the background, like, oh, I never knew, oh, look at that, you know, that bush is shaped like a peanut, I don't know, whatever you have to do to entertain yourself. I would never bother to go through the trouble on a movie like this, but I will say that I don't have any regrets getting to know these movies, and maybe further down the line I'll have a better appreciation for them. I mean, that's definitely happened to me before in other movies, like other movies that I never really liked before, and for some reason, like maybe 10 years down the road, they start to grow on me for whatever reason, because my priorities change as I matured, and what I see in movies, what I like in movies, changes over time. So, you know, I won't ever rule these movies out, but they're just, you know, they're comparatively, there's other things I'd rather watch. Like, for instance, like the first time I ever saw fucking Sleepaway Camp, I was like, wow, I fucking love this movie. This is my kind of movie, you know? But it's definitely more in the sleaze category. It's just fun movie, you know? It's just Hiltzik put together something that was, you know, very entertaining from beginning to finish. Had a lot of energy to it. This is kind of like a boring 70s high school drama or something, you know. And then it picks up. It you know, once it gets over that hill, then the ball rolls down the hill, and it's more of a ride. But you know, there's some decent characters in here. That sort of like rough and tumble Cretan dude is an interesting character, and I like Jamie Lee. You know, Jamie Lee is always Jamie Lee. She's just sort of herself. She looks cute in this movie, you know, and so do her friends and stuff. It's just kind of interesting to see. It's a little time capsule of like what 70s high schoolers were like, you know, at the end of the 70s, and all their stupid fucking haircuts and super tight jeans. I wonder if this place still exists. I wonder if it's probably up in Canada somewhere if it is. But yeah, so like I was saying, in high school we used to go out to this abandoned mental asylum, and it's supposedly very, very haunted. I mean, it's been on it's been on a lot of TV shows, and it's been investigated, and people have all kinds of stories from there. And we just, on a boring weekend night when I was like 16 years old, me and two of my buddies would drive up there. It'd be like 20 minutes outside of town, and we'd park the car way down the street and hike in, and then you work your way through the overgrown courtyard and find your little, climbing through a window or whatever, and we would just have flashlights and we'd just go exploring and walking around, and it was creepy as fuck, dude, believe me. And the last thing you want to do is like get separated from your buddies in there. And it's wild, man. I never saw anything or heard anything in there, but I know people who have, and it's definitely, Waverly Hills is definitely known as one of the darkest, dankest, most haunted, fucked up places in the country. So I think, doesn't every town have its like spot like that? I mean, I'm sure you guys all have your stories too. I mean, you should, feel free to post a story in the comments below or something. I'd love to hear like crazy ghost stories and stories, anecdotes like that. But yeah, so here we are with more plot development with these cops, and it's just like snooze fest, right? As far as that, our first victim. Jamie Lee Curtis in her prime. I would say this, she looked pretty damn good in True Lies as well. I mean, you can't beat that striptease she does for Arnie in the hotel room there. That was classic. But it's the 70s, and every 70s movie has to have disco and a dance floor in it, so. So I graduated high school in 1995, and we had prom. I went to junior prom, senior prom my junior year with a senior, and I went to my senior prom. And I had more fun at senior prom my junior year than I did at my own senior prom. And I remember I didn't have a date, surprisingly. It was like I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. I wasn't like hankering to go because I'd already gone to senior prom and I had other interests going on. I mean, I was in the visual arts program. I was more interested in going to college and my school scholarships than I was like going to prom. And I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, so me and my best bud were just kind of like, well, we should go. So it was kind of like finding dates at the last second. So we just got a couple girls that we were friends with that were single, and we're like, hey, let's go as friends or whatever. It's, I bought the ticket and I got the corsage or whatever, and we all went out to dinner. It wasn't a terrible night, but my date kind of sucked because we're like, where do you want to go for dinner? And she's like, this Italian place that she used to wait tables at. Well, lo and behold, it was like she wanted to go there for dinner because she was like in love with this waiter who worked there. And I could just tell like right away when we sat down that she was just like, her whole body demeanor changed, and she was just like, her eyes were like locked on this dude, and she was like following him around with her, with her gaze like the whole time. It was like I wasn't even there, and I was just sitting there with my fucking tux and my little corsage and like fucking feeling like a chump who's paying for dinner, And then we went to prom, and she just sat there the whole night. She didn't want to do anything. She was like, it was like, I've known people with the fucking flu that were more fun to hang out with than this girl. I mean, I don't know what was going on in her life at the time, and we weren't like super good close friends, but she wasn't into hanging out with me, so we all just kind of busted out on the dance floor. So you have to figure it was like 90s, but they were, it was like tons of 80s and a lot of like R&B hits and shit like that from the 90s and whatnot. We had a good time, but it was like all about, what the parties that came after prom, and the possibilities of things that might happen and a passage of time. And we're like, we didn't get invited to any parties. We didn't find out about any parties. We didn't have any booze. We didn't have any pot. We didn't have any girls that wanted to have sex with us. We had nothing going on. We actually went back to one of the girls' house, which was, like a nice place, but it was just like the most boring. We just sat around, I think my buddy had found a way to get a little airplane bottle of Goldschlager, and that was like it. You split a one shot of fucking Goldschlager between two people. It's like you might as well just drink, nothing, because it didn't do anything. But that was my senior prom. It was nice memory, but boring as fuck. Right? No exciting tales to tell there. But so that we just saw our first glimpse of the brother of the girl who died, and also the son of the principal, I think. I know I might be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. That fucking young buck there wants to fuck Jamie Lee Curtis, and she's not having it because he's a scumbag, and he's terrorizing her in the fucking cafeteria with a mask on. Like, oh my god, dude, you'd be fucking put to death for that nowadays in today's fucking PC culture. Interesting clash of the times. I mean, back then I'm sure it was considered just an innocent prank, but nowadays you'd be fucking tarred and feathered for that shit. But fucking ski mask, dude. I mean, come on. But anyway, so the brother jumps in, saves the day, fucking kicks his ass, protects her or whatever, and I think they just threw this in here to show some emphasis on the son character, right? To show that he's got a violent streak in him, he's protective, he's got problems, he's got issues, maybe with impulse control or something. I don't know. I mean, obviously, while I was watching it for the first time, I was just thinking that guy had it coming, and that was all I was focused on. Like, that guy's a fucking scumbag. He could really be the second MacGuffin in the movie. He's another guy, maybe a potential suspect there. Because he just seems like maybe the type. But he's a distraction. So it's really about the kid with the fro there, the son. He's got issues. So, anyway. Yeah. Boring prom night. Didn't get laid. Didn't get drunk. Didn't get high. But, at least I went. I think I've got some pictures or something, and I always wasn't one of those people that was really focused on that being such a meaningful night. There were so many people in high school that I knew who had the same boyfriend or girlfriend for like 2 or 3 years of high school, and they were really serious and knew each other, and this was like it was a big bonding, important experience for them and all that crap, and it was just like, I don't know, we were all kind of rogue, you know what I mean? We were all like kind of the misfits and shit, because like I said, we were like the artists and the nerds and, the creative thinkers, man, the people, we were outside the box a little bit and stuff, so. But we weren't like totally counterculture rebellious to the point where we didn't want to go. I mean, we knew how to have a good time, but if we had planned a little better, we probably would have, fucked shit up. Really had a good time, but it wasn't meant to be. I always thought Jamie Lee was she's kind of odd looking, right? I mean, she's attractive, but she's like, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not trying to compare it to today's standards or anything like that. I mean, even for those days, she kind of had a different look, which, I mean, it probably helped her because, I mean, I think it's good to be attractive and be a little odd looking at the same time if you're going to be in Hollywood because it helps you stand out, you know? It helps you, like, you're not just some cookie cutter Kardashian fuck twat, you know? Forgettable. Sometimes, you know, Hollywood actresses are like so perfect pretty, but they're like a mannequin that came to life. They don't have any personality to them. But yeah, she's, you know, she's all right. And it'll be interesting to see what she does with the return to Halloween. That should be coming out next year. I think Halloween 2018 is slated for release. And they just announced maybe like a month ago that Jamie Lee Curtis was returning to play Laurie Strode in Halloween. So I'm really interested to find out how they're going to do that. You know, I mean, who is it? The guy, fucking Eastbound and Down guy. They got a group of writers on there who are probably better known for their comedy writing. But they're trying to restore the Halloween franchise after the damage that has been done. After, you know, I think it's probably like 5 and 6. So, you know, after 5 and 6, those are all pretty bad. And then you've got, you know, the Rob Zombie reboots, remake, whatever you want to call it. Those were pretty bad. Especially the first one. Second one was passable. But it really got away from the genesis of, like, what, you know, the core of what Halloween was. And I think what they're saying that I've been reading is that they're trying to bring it back to that, you know. So maybe Michael will come back after her daughter or something. But then again, that'll be so much like H2O, where, you know, he comes after her son. So I mean, I hear they're just going to cut out completely, like, it's going to be a sequel after Halloween 2. So anything after 2, 3, and on, they're going to throw away, and they're just going to pick up. So I guess they're going to, like, just get rid of that canon and just start over. Which I'm fine with. I mean, fuck it, why not? I mean, I don't have any problem. I mean, that fucking, ooh, nice. She got a nice butt. But anyway, you know, that franchise is so fucking worn out that they gotta do something. You know, they gotta get rid of that whole Cult of Thorn thing they had going on with Paul Rudd, and, you know, then what is he, like, he gets his sister pregnant or something, or his niece, I don't know. It's just, it gets really wacky with the whole family line. And that's the thing, is I've seen those movies so many times and it's hard for me to even, like, kind of figure out what the fuck they were doing in those. But they're gonna reel it back and, you know, maybe put it in modern times or something. And I'm curious to see. I mean, I hope it's really, really good. Main thing right off the bat is I hope they don't fuck up the mask. Like, they have to get the mask just like the first 2 movies. That is the best Halloween mask, I think, so far. There's been other good and bad masks. Some have been, you know, somewhat passable and everything, but don't fuck up the mask. Start with a good shape, you know what I mean? Make the shape how he's supposed to be, you know. But, you know, it's Hollywood, it's modern Hollywood, and I don't get my hopes up too high. But here we have the quintessential slasher horror movie locker scene with the beautiful ladies, right? I like Jamie Lee when she wears her hair up, man. I think that makes her look cuter for some reason. But here we have a smashing of the mirror, which is a bad omen, right?
Hello?
And now I think about it, Friday the 13th is a revenge flick too, so I guess they're kind of... It's interesting that they both came up with that sort of timeline, not timeline. Came up with that core plot element together. You know, because I'm sure they were making these movies at the same time. I mean, Friday the 13th is mother's revenge, and this movie is a brother's revenge. So, I mean, I guess when you, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go with a horror movie, right? I mean, what motivates people to kill? But I guess it's just a coincidence. What do you guys think of this movie or this franchise? Have you guys seen these movies? I mean, I would love to hear more opinions about the movies that we do commentaries on. Like, what are your opinions of them? What are your opinions of what we think about the movies? Like, do you agree? Do you disagree? You know, as long as it's as long as the comments are in good taste or whatever. Most of the time, I mean, shit. Reasonably within good taste. I mean, I'm gonna leave them up there, so more than welcome to agree or disagree. But what do you think of these movies? I mean, I kind of asked around with some of my other horror YouTube nerd friends, and like they just don't really know what to make of them either. They're just kind of like there, you know, they just exist. They're not really appreciated for any one reason or the other. They're just kind of generic. Like it almost kind of feels like a movie. A low-budget movie that was ripping off other horror movies, but later on down the line, you know, because usually early on in a franchise or in a genre, you know, they have to be super creative to come up, you know, the ideas aren't stifled by what has come before it. So, you know, usually the original of something, it comes out the most interesting because a lot of thought and creative prowess was put into it, and this movie doesn't have a lot of that, oddly. So it's very forgettable. I mean, all of them are. I think 2 might be more fun. You know, it might be more of a fun slasher movie, but it's not good. It's just really, really bad movie, you know. So now shit is starting to happen. More and more pieces are getting set up on the chessboard. And what they're doing now is they're like setting up for the prom and they're rehearsing everything. And it's just stalling to give the movie more time to develop the characters and set everything up for the big collapse, big chaos at the end. And, you know, to set the stage, literally, you know. That big wheel shape in the back, it's really fucked up because it reminds me of a big wheel. Cause I was in the Navy. And we ported in Guam on my first deployment. And there's a strip club there we went to. And it has a stage just like that in it. I mean, a smaller version of it. And imagine that in like a dirty, seedy, you know, Pacific Island strip club. And there's a wheel at the back of the stage like that. And these strippers would do their dance routine on the stage, but then they would grab a guy and they would bring him on stage and they would tie him. They would like take his belt off or something, and they had, I don't know what, scarves and shit, and they would tie him to like the wheel, you know, kind of arms spread out or whatever, and they would just fucking, they would basically strip him nude and like whip him and shit. It was like, you couldn't do that, you know, stateside. It'd be like illegal to do in any kind of establishment. But I mean, you know, in the moment, the dudes are, you know, that I saw it happen to in that one night, in that one specific instance, were like into it, you know, because it was like, and the guys were like cheering him on, and we were whooping and just fucking laughing our asses off, right? Because this guy's getting like fucking his ass whipped by a fucking, you know, Filipino stripper in the middle of like some speck of an island in the middle Pacific. But yeah, that little stage element always reminds me of that. Some memory, huh? God, don't get me started on my Navy stories. Some pretty wild times. So yeah, she's starting to suspect that some weird shit is going on, and somebody's creeping around, keeping an eye on her or stalking her possibly, and you know, she's creeped out or whatever. But you know, I wonder what her thoughts were on this movie and making this movie after the big success that Halloween was. I mean, maybe she thought this was going to be another big hit, you know? And well, I mean, technically it was, but it wasn't well received critically. But I mean, it made a lot of money. So, I mean, you know, you can't complain too much, but I don't think I've ever heard her or anyone else ever talk about this movie in any kind of like reference to yada yada yada, you know. So that whole like ripping out the pictures from the yearbook thing, it was a total afterthought from the director Paul Lynch. Like after the fact, after the movie was shot, he just went in and added in shots of that, I guess, to maybe thread together something through the whole movie to give it some consistency, to hype up the creep a little bit, the creepiness of it, which I like that little, you know, element. It's like the killer is tormenting, you know, these children who murdered his sister when he was a child, you know. It's like his little, it's not necessarily a calling card, but it's kind of just like a, I don't know what you call it. It's just like a warning he's sending out, you know. He's just marking them for death in a way, you know.
Did you take it? No. Never seen it. Why does everything have to happen at the last minute? Mom, you look terrific. I remember putting it on the dressing table.
I probably should have drank some beers before I started this commentary because this movie's so dry. But I really wanted to try to focus in on some of the, you know, the actual critical aspects of the movie rather than just rambling on about boobs all day. You know, so there's Leslie looking sharp in his fucking tuxedo going to chaperone the prom because he's the fucking principal of the school, right? God damn, I remember when everybody used to drive, not everybody, but families used to drive those big, like, fucking family trip station wagons like that, man. One of my mother's friends, work friends, had one of those, and I would go to her house and clean it for like $20, you know. Those things were actually really fun to ride in the back end, though, because the suspension and the shocks was like so soft. The thing was like literally like a fucking parade float, you know, driving down the street. But, you know, you could just sit back there with your friends and play with your toys and spread out, you know. There's plenty of leg room. So here's a killer POV. And this is very Halloween-ish here. And, you know, this is stock shit for fucking horror movies now. I'm sure that's just one of the things that they were trying to, you know, trying to draw from Carpenter's Halloween.
Oh, thank you. Are you going to help me with these, or are you going to just stand there and leer?
You're my sister. I'll leave.
You're going to get over here. Thank you. Wow. You've done this before, I see.
Whenever I think about the 70s, man, I can never understand why what they thought looked good. I don't understand the logic. Like, I mean, yeah, people, every generation looks back in 10 years and at what they used to wear, and we're like, what the, you know, like, what were we thinking? Why would we dress that way? Why would we do our hair like that? You know, I mean, it's weird because, oh, you look at the 70s, everything's polyester and fucking pastels and bell bottoms and fucking feathered or permed hair, or I mean, look at that dress on. It looks fucking awful, dude. Like sagging around her waist, and she's like this tight little body, and she's got this fucking trash bag on. But you know, you look back on the '80s stuff. You got that giant feathered out hair you know, that would take like 2 cans of Aquanet to fucking get to stand up right, and denim jackets with the sleeves pushed up past the elbow, and like, you know, just atrocious fucking 80s fashion. I mean, dude, I don't have to spell it out for you, dude. I mean, but when I was like living through that in my childhood, I was like, nobody ever thought anything of it. It was just what was cool. And it's just so weird that 10 years later you look back. I mean, even I remember in high school, you know, when everything was all counterculture and grunge and shit, looking back on that and just thinking, what the fuck? And we would have like 80s parties and we would just dress up in 80s clothes like it was a Halloween costume, just making fun of it. And it was only like 5 years ago that people were dressing like that, but it seemed like a lifetime ago. It's just so weird how that culturally works, you know? I mean, it's kind of dissipated in the last couple decades, it seems like. I mean, how did people really dress in like the early, you know, let's say 2000, 2010, and then we're coming up at the end of this decade, so, you know, how did people dress in the 2010s? I mean, probably look back at like fucking, you know, the extreme stuff, like what pop culture was, you know. But, you know, it's usually what it was is like the pop culture stuff dictated like how people dressed, you know. Like for instance, Madonna was like the trendsetter back in the 80s for all the chicks and stuff, and everybody wore the excessive jewelry and the bad eye makeup and the teased hair and the, you know, you get the point. But you know, you don't see a lot of people walking around the street like dressed like Lady Gaga or you know, Jay-Z or something, or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't really exist like that. Or maybe I just can't see it yet. Maybe I won't see it for like another 20 years and look back and be like, oh man, like, yeah, what were people thinking? I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it's not widespread culture. I mean, I've been dressing the same since I was in high school. So that I've never had that problem, you know, from the 90s on. But I mean, you go back and you like say like watch a video from like, you know, watch like some home footage or something of people like running around in New York in the early 2000s, and like it doesn't really look that different from like what people wear now. It's just like maybe their cell phones are a little different or something. Really subtle changes. There wasn't any like all that crazy. Maybe it's just, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just because drugs aren't as mainstream or something. Maybe because everybody was on blow in the 70s, like everybody thought like that looked good. It's like times of excess, right? Who knows? It's hard to say. Maybe we just wised up. Maybe we've just become more culturally bland. I mean, Jesus, there was a time when people like wore like fucking full three-piece suits with fedoras, pocket watches, carried cigarette cases, you know? I mean, it was just like everybody had class and style if they had any money to have that, you know? Then you moved into the 50s and it was all like, you know, everybody was classy, you know, for the most part, you know, and an adult was very well dressed with, you know, a sweater and a button-up shirt and fucking slacks, penny loafers or something, you know, dress shoes, combed hair. And then you get into the 60s and it's just like it's tie-dye and, you know, more outrageous, more freedom in their clothing, lots of baggy shit, headbands, fucking, you know, you guys have all seen the 60s stuff, so 70s, you know, and then 80s and 90s. 90s, you definitely can pinpoint something. Why am I going off on this tangent? I don't know, because maybe this movie's boring. You know, 90s, flannel, ripped denim, Doc Marten shoes or Chucks, colored hair, bad haircuts. You know, we had our shit too. Now, I just don't really see anything. Maybe I'm blind to it. Look at Leslie Nielsen getting down on the dance floor. See, now I think we're over the hump. We're almost an hour in and things are just now starting to get interesting in this movie. I don't think a movie made... If they took the script and they made it today, I don't think it would move this slow. You know? Unless it was like a poor director. I think they would rearrange it to make things move a little bit more speedy because audiences don't have the attention span that they used to. But I mean, if you go back and you look at Carrie, that movie's thoughtful and well presented, but it's not slow like this, you know. So this movie is flawed for sure. I know. It's a little bit of both, I think. I like how the fucking goon has like a crappy fucking pair of jeans on and like, but a tux top. You know, like he just couldn't commit all the way. Oh, that's a dress. A fucking red sequin number. Oh yeah, lady in red. So here comes the big dance number. I don't know why they put this fucking really long dance number in here. This whole score was written by a guy. The disco songs written by one or two guys in like 5 days. But they went through the trouble to choreograph this big disco dance. I don't know if they were just thinking, hey, it worked in Saturday Night Fever, let's throw this in here. It's charming for like a second, and then it just drags on. And it's like that kind of dancing, it really dates the movie. In Saturday Night Fever, that movie's so awesome it works. It's like, really important to the storyline because it's about, the guy and the teacher. And this movie, it's just like, it's just two actors dancing really bad to, disco music. And bad disco music at that. Prom night disco song, I do kind of like her, I mean, she could pull off some disco moves, I mean, they obviously put some work into it. But I'm just saying that, like, it was a bad choice to put in the whole song, Or at least this long of a dance number in this kind of movie. But it's, technically this is like a fucking 70s movie, The 80s hadn't really unraveled yet. It was only, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, 7 months into 1980, so it was just starting to culturally change. So I think you see a lot of 70s stuff culturally sort of slip into 1980s movies. At least 80, 81, 82, sometimes even. But they couldn't have just gotten at least something kind of rockin'. I mean, this is just like the worst of disco. The worst. I mean, it's obvious that they skimped on the music. I mean, I'll give them credit. I mean, they pulled off a decent score for 5 days, but why would you just... I mean, music's so important to a movie. Why would you rush it, Rush together a bunch of bad score music, a bunch of bad disco music. Like I said, I mean, $1.5 million is pretty good money for 1980. I don't understand why all the corners were cut, but hey, if you know why, let me know in the comments below. I'm not doing any more reading or investigating on this movie after this is done. At least not for a while, so. Yes. There's always like a shot in the ladies' room, too. I'll meet you, greet you in the ladies' room. Meet you, greet you in the ladies' room. Anybody tell me what song that is? Anybody? Make a guess. Go ahead. Type in your answer below. Let me know. Do you know it? I'll give you a hint. It's a late 70s band. I'll meet you, greet you in the ladies' room. For my money, it can't be too soon. Sorry, that was a bad rendition, but you get the point. Not a bad song. Catchy. Guy's such a fucking asshole. We all knew that one guy, right? Who was like this fucking meathead. Barely finished high school. Totally self-centered. Egotistical bastard with no fucking intelligence. You know, nothing floating around in the brain. Just a really base organism, you know? Yeah, so now we're starting to get into the kills. There's like 8 kills in this movie. Feels more like 4, you know? Because they're not really dynamic, but there's some decent stuff, you know? This is a classic slasher movie setup here. The sex in the locker room or the dark place or whatever. The hidden away. Which the couple goes away to get it on, and then the fucking killer comes along and, you know, ends their ecstasy, so to speak. Oh yeah, that's right. No, she gets all frigid on him and he fucking gets pissed. This guy's a real fucking cockbag too. He just fucking walks out on her, you know, because she won't put out. Trying to get a blowy in the locker room. She's not having any of it, man. She's just not ready yet. And he's just getting fucking pissed. More and more pissed by the minute. She just wants intimacy with a dude. You know, she doesn't want sex. She just wants some intimacy with a guy. And he just is like, dude, I gotta get my cock wet, so this is a waste of my time. Fuck you. I'm taking off. Leaves her there with her fucking tits hanging out, man. What a fucking asshole. Look at that pouty little face, man. Don't you feel bad for her? I just want to give her a big hug. Put a towel around her. I'll be like, come on, baby. We'll go watch some, we'll go watch some Netflix. We'll just chill. We'll order a pizza. It's all good. He's like, I'm gonna go find the drunk chick at the party. God, can you imagine if that was your prom night memory as a chick? Like, you just, some guy trying to fucking ram it in you and he gets pissed because you won't put out, and he just fucking walks out on you, ditches you the whole night. I bet that's happened to a lot of chicks, probably. Ah, here we go. Now we're getting to slasher territory. Oh, he's got broken piece of mirror. I wonder if there's any... Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there's some symbolism to that, right? Because there was a broken mirror at the beginning of the movie, the very first shot. And there was broken glass that killed the girl. And so maybe that's his weapon of choice, is broken glass or broken sharp, the broken pieces of mirror. I mean, it's really on the nose, really obvious fucking symbolism, but it's better than nothing. I'm trying to carry a little bit of a theme through. This would be the killer's version of Jason's, machete. That's reaching a bit. Fucking scumbag teacher trying to get on the student. There's some parts of this movie that remind me of American Graffiti. I wonder if they were trying to rip that off too. That the American Graffiti is one of my favorite movies, honestly, and that's George Lucas's first mainstream movie. A great coming of age movie. There's a lot of vibes in this that feel like that movie. So this fucking dork actually gets his dick wet in the back of this van. The fucking stolen van. I wonder if the owner of this vehicle actually maybe was at a drive-in or something, or was sitting on his couch like years later, and it came on like just, you know, some sleazy cable channel, and he saw his van and he was like, what the fuck? So that's what happened to my van. Or, you know, maybe somebody told him, you know, oh, I saw your van that you lost. Remember that van you lost that got stolen? I saw it in a shitty horror movie.
Oh, God.
Yeah, me too. The best.
Ever?
Well,
You're my first, too.
really?
Guy's such a fucking pud. But you know what? He's got moves. Hey, you know, it worked.
Cars up there.
Yeah, I figured
His lines worked, man.
they would have my glasses.
Oh, yeah? Well, why don't we take
Yeah, so American Graffiti was 73. So there was plenty of time for that to, you know, set the standard for these types of movies or whatever, you know.
It'd be fantastic.
I mean, not for horror, but for teenage coming-of-age movies, you know. Although that movie was substantially better than this one. But, here we got some, you know, we're changing the scenery to some woods, which is nice. Yeah, I don't like the way this movie looks visually, tonally, you know, it just feels like the director was not very good. I don't know a whole lot about Paul Lynch, but there's no artistry in any of the scenes at all, in the way they're framed up and the way they look or feel. Just, it looks very muddy, or like I said, blown out. And it's kind of boring to look at, honestly. You know? It's very utilitarian, you know? I mean, Jesus, even Hiltzik did a better job in his movie, Sleepaway Camp.
Somebody's out there. Why don't we go?
Let's see what else he's got under his belt. Paul Lynch.
I think you do, too.
He's an English guy. Director. God damn, the guy's still working. Nothing you would know, but he's still working. That surprises me. Maybe he got better. I don't know. He directed some episodes of Xena. Warrior Princess, the TV show. Let's see. I'm just looking for any. He did some episodes of Baywatch, some episodes of Outer Limits. Now that makes sense. The Outer Limits from the 90s. I could see him doing that.
Think this is the time to study?
He did. A lot of TV, it looks like. He did some Star Trek episodes. So, like I said, he's very utilitarian. He's a forgetful director. You know, he doesn't have. There's no artistry in what he does. It's very you know, by the book. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. This is all fucking just shit. Shit stuff. Mostly shitty TV. I guess he directed a movie called Blood and Guts. Let me write that down. I'll have to check that out. That was in 78. Maybe that's what got him this movie.
You know, I'll remember this night for the rest of my life.
They should have named this movie The Disco Slasher, or Disco Slasher. It'd be more apropos, you know.
So have I.
You know what, do I have to give this fucking fatty some credit, though? He does fight off the killer here a little bit. And he, you know... He's such a fucking putz. He's in a moving vehicle and he couldn't fucking take out the killer. He could have run him over, backed over him. you know, do something. Just fucking get the, haul ass out of there or something. Somehow still manages to get his ass murdered, but hey, at least he fought back. He also directed another movie after this one called Mania? The Intruder, which is a TV movie from 1986. I don't know, he directed an episode of Moonlighting. I actually used to really like that show in the 80s. Bruce Willis, early days. Anyway, there you go. They ruined their little stolen van, and fucking dumbass I got my dick wet dies. More disco. The Disco Slasher. He could have come out doing some fucking Bee Gees moves or some fucking Saturday Night Fever moves and with a fucking, big butcher knife in his hands. And, he could have like sequins all over his fucking, his little killer outfit, sequin mask, do it with some style, real 70s style. Bell bottoms.
You gotta show him who's boss.
Look, I thought I told you I didn't want anyone hurt.
Stop telling me what to do.
She's a fucking bitch, though. In some ways, he's kind of like her, that goon, he's kind of like her equal because he doesn't put up with her fucking shit.
Hey, have you got any mascara? Have you got any mascara?
Yeah, she's definitely the cutest one out of the bunch of the ladies in the movie. But I think, obviously, all the kids that were involved in the original incident in the very fucking first 10 minutes of the movie or whatever are all slowly getting picked off one by one. You're like, we know it's obvious, but I'm just saying, in case you forgot, it's a revenge movie. They're all getting taken out. Oh, now he's got an axe. Oh, psst. Yeah, don't forget your axe. Don't forget your murder weapon, asshole. Yeah, see, that's one thing about this movie is it doesn't have a lot of chase in it. There's not a lot of tension happening because there isn't a lot of chase given till the very, very end. We're already like an hour and 14 minutes into this fucking movie. And, I don't know, if you haven't seen this movie before, really they haven't given away who the killer is at all. I like how there's like a perfectly placed mat on the floor. Like a perfectly placed gym mat just laying there for her to fall on. Oh, how convenient. Nice. But this stuff is good because, she's being isolated away from the group. She's being chased by a fucking guy in a ski mask with a fucking, an axe. That's pretty scary shit if you think about it. You're in that situation, you would be, you would be pretty unnerved, I would imagine. And, of course, in hindsight, now, it makes sense why they threw the ski mask on the goon to throw you off as a MacGuffin. Because, that whole scene never really made a lot of sense. It's like, why would he fucking put a ski mask on? That's pretty brutal for a prank, Even for a goon like that, pretty wildly inappropriate shit. Oh, I can't believe I've made it an hour and 15 minutes into this movie. I've only had 2 beers. That's pretty incredible, man. I've been like fucking yapping my fucking trap off. So yeah, I mean, I would say all the performances in this movie are pretty decent for the most part. They're not memorable though. They're not really good or anything. But they're not like atrocious, you know. They're not like from like Troll 2 or something, or The Room. You know, they got some integrity to it. And I mean, this is a movie. It's a solid movie. It's just so forgettable. It's just bland. No amount of fucking disco numbers you put in it are gonna save it, you know? Maybe they extended the disco scene because they thought, this movie's boring. Well, what are the kids like? Disco? Okay, well, throw some more disco in there. You know? I don't know. Who knows? I wonder if it made a lot of money because that was just what was hot at the time because of what Halloween had done. You know? I'm sure it was like maybe in the theaters for a little while. I mean, so it was maybe, you know, if Friday the 13th came out in May, and then, you know, slasher craze was starting to, you know, that movie did real well, you know, became a cultural hit, and then this movie came out. I'm sure it was riding a little bit of the coattails of Friday the 13th in terms of just like horror movies became a big popular thing. Just like now, where like the remake of It just came out, and that's just fucking crushed. The most, you know, that was the most lucrative fucking horror movie into history, apparently. In movie history, it made the most money of a horror movie ever. I think it just beat out, was it Jaws? No, it had to be something more recent. Anyway, it just took the crown for the most money ever made in a horror movie. And so that movie is going to get the studios generating more scary movies. You know? And something will come out and will ride its coattails and make some more money because that was what people are interested in, because it's like what, you know, is on people's minds right now. I mean, people loved the remake of It. It was really good. I liked it a lot. I mean, you know, if they came out with something within the next 4 or 5 months that looked really good, that seemed like they had put some effort and time and money behind it, that I would go see it too. And then maybe that movie will make, you know, 10 times its budget. You know, and it'll be forgotten in history because it was never really that good. That's what I think was going on in this, you know. I'm sure there's examples of that all through the last 4 or 5 decades with horror movies, but I can't think of any of them offhand. You know, like Scream probably be one where that totally revamped the slasher genre, and then a bunch of shit came out, and some of it good, some of it not good, but you know, it prompted them to make, you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer, you know, Final Destination movies or whatever. You know, Urban Legends, I think it was another one, 90s. You know, and some of that's the good stuff, but I'm sure there was bad stuff that came out right after Scream that was not good. You know, that probably made money and that got forgotten. That got tossed away over time because it didn't really stand the test of time, you know. And that's what this movie is, I think. But it played its part, you know. It was a stepping stone. It kept the genre going, so it aided to the momentum of the slasher craze. Oh my God. Someone showed some emotion. Holy shit. Yeah, that's definitely one thing this movie's lacking, is any kind of extreme emotions, you know? I mean, in a movie where there's a killer on the loose, you'd think there'd be wailing, crying, freaking out. I mean, think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, Jesus, that was 74, right? So, you know, they could have looked to that for some influence. But I think that was more of a cult hit sort of movie. It wasn't really mainstream, was it? It wasn't until later on that movie really got the appreciation it deserved. But, yeah, this movie is definitely barely hanging on to being interesting, you know? We get a little bit of gore, a little bit of suspense. You know, it's enough to keep us sort of interested, but you know, it doesn't really go for. It doesn't go for broke, which is what slasher movies should do. It should just fucking try to entertain the fuck out of you. Nobody gives a shit about these 70s assholes with mustaches and leisure suits on, you know? Unless it's Tom Atkins, you know. But there was they should have gotten Tom Atkins to be in this movie. Then you'd be on to something. You know? God, look at that bald asshole, man. All he needs is like a monocle. Complete his outfit. The crazy old groundskeeper is fucking... He's the, Crazy Ralph of the movie. You know? You're all doomed. That kind of thing. The Bad Omen. Yeah, it's weird. It's like... Why was... Friday the 13th so successful in this... You know, in terms of just being praised as like a really good movie, and this not. You know, we're just, you know, that's, I mean, essentially that's just a bunch of kids running around in the woods and stuff, and, you know, an old lady trying to kill people in a blue sweater, you know? It's like, I don't know, it's just something about that movie clicks. This movie does not have any of it. Any of that kind of charm to it. It's a very, very adequate movie, but it's not memorable, you know? I think Friday the 13th is memorable, especially, you know, the actress at the end playing Pamela Voorhees does an amazing job in that role. I mean, she really sells it as a, you know, even though we don't really find out it's her till the very end. You know, her... you know, rising up against Adrian King at the end of the movie, you know, was exciting. And they're fighting on the beach, and then she gets decapitated, and, you know, there's a lot to remember. And a great finish in the movie with her in the canoe, and the boy jumps out of the lake, and, you know, this stuff right here is boring, man. You know? I mean, look at the way it's shot. It's just ugly. Ugh. It's an ugly crown. So even the stuff, you know, there's even segments within the very end of the movie, which is really the most exciting part of the movie, drags. It's really slow. Shouldn't really take people out of the action. You know, out of the action that they've been waiting for over an hour for too long. They should just keep it going. Make it brutal. Make it fast. Make it, you know, make it jolting. You know, keep it flowing. And they just keep slowing it down, building it up. Death, slow it down, build it up. You know. We're coming up on the best part of the movie, you know. Most memorable part, in quotation marks, memorable part of the movie. It would have been nice if they could have come up with something better than just a guy in all black. That was a pretty cool shot. It's always nice to see a decapitation, you know. And then it just rolls out to a nice reveal of the head sitting up perfectly facing the crowd of the fucking goon just got decapitated, right? That's a great moment. That's the best part of the movie. Easily. I just wish it looked better. It just doesn't look good. I mean, it's okay, but you could have made that way cooler. Way cooler. I mean, you think about the movie Carrie when she gets the pig's blood dumped on her. How epic of a moment that was. And that's just so like, there's a severed head. Can you believe it? And it's just like some strobe lights and a bunch of people panicking. And it's just, you don't really feel the terror of the moment at all. So basically, that's as good as it gets. And of course, it doesn't help that in the background, all you hear is fucking disco music. I don't equate scary with disco music. I'm sorry. I just don't. I do like as corny as it sounds, like the voice effects. You know? I mean, at least they gave the killer some personality, even though he's just so monotone in this all black ninja outfit, or whatever you want to call it. It's just fucking, you know. Like, he looks like a house burglar, you know? It's just fucking boring. They couldn't put a little flavor on it or something. You know, costume designer couldn't have done a little bit better job than that, but apparently not. Anyway, Lisa gave him a creepy voice, you know, which is very... It reminds me a lot of Ghostface Killer from Scream, you know? Or like the end of Sleepaway Camp, you know, where she's like, you know, just like that creepy like sociopath sort of killer voice, you know. Oh, she fucking brained him, man. You know, getting hit even with a mute end of a fucking axe like that would fuck you up, man. It's funny because he like can't believe his own sister fucking smashed his fucking head in. But she recognizes his eyes, and that might be my favorite part of the movie, honestly. Because that movie actually has some interesting exchanges and some tension in it. Because he's just like totally shocked, he can't believe, like, you know, his own sister fucking bashed his head in, and then she looks at him and he's confused, and she sees his eyes, and he's just like, they both feel the pain of the realization of that moment, and he's of course stunned, reliving the moments. Yeah, see, now she realizes it's his brother. I mean, her brother, so. Yeah. He was so severely psychologically damaged from that incident, that tragic thing that happened when he was a child, that it drove him mad and he had to kill. You know, I like how the mask is... Why is the mask sparkly like that? What the fuck? But anyway, yeah, so she... Yeah, so it's a nice little scene, you get the reveal. It's a nice way to reveal who the killer is, you know? And she's like this sobbing little child, essentially, you know? And, you know, who it might have been otherwise a completely ordinary, good-natured human being got fucked up by one divergence in time where something terrible happened and he just snapped, you know? And that's really cool script writing. It's just the rest of the movie surrounding it is just fucking a giant, you know, snooze fest. And the ending is terrible. I mean, the very, very ending, you know? It's like, this just fade out to this shot. It's just like terrible fucking 70s music. They should have gone with something more emotional to carry us out of that emotional moment, you know? Well, whatever. It's a fucking 1980s crappy slasher movie. My opinion, the best out of the franchise. The other movies have better moments that are more thrilling, but as a whole, the movie's just absolutely terrible. So it's just about what I look for in a movie. This movie I can watch all the way through, even though it gets boring. It's a, solid movie for the most part. It's just very forgettable. I would never really recommend this movie to anybody. I would just say maybe just watch like a compilation of the kills on Facebook, or fast forward to the very end to see the scene with Jamie Lee Curtis and where her brother dies. And that's about it. I've heard other people say that they don't really know what to make of the franchise because it's kind of all over the place. I would just like to chalk it up to probably the slasher genre finding its footing. And that, there had to be missteps along the way, and this franchise just misstepped. And then eventually, just through finding out what people like, they kind of got its foothold, and then it really got traction, it really got traction, and it really got going. And then, we got good movies, and then we got bad movies that were good, So, I give this some credit, man. It's not a bad movie. And, I would say if I was going to rank it out of 5, like I always do at the end of the movie, I give it like a 2. A 2. Just out of respect. It's just not a very thrilling movie. And the thing is, during the times, it might have been exciting. You have to put it into the context of the time the movie came out. Because we've all been spoiled by seeing everything. I mean, you compare this to a movie like the remake of It that just came out. It just seems like that movie's jam-packed with all kinds of exciting stuff. And this movie's just fucking boring. Anyway, there you go. There's Prom Night, 1980. Jamie Lee Curtis, her second horror movie ever. So, anyway, listen, guys, if you ever want us to do a specific movie or tap into a franchise, just go ahead and directly email us at rratedhorror@gmail.com or at facebook.com/rratedhorror. And also, you can just drop us a comment on YouTube. We're happy to, consider maybe doing one of those movies. We like to have some more interactions with the subscribers, so just let us know. And also, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, and feel free to like or dislike videos, or just open a discussion on the thread. So you can also check out my artwork at joshjamescreative.com or facebook.com/joshjamescreative. And check out Matt Wazell at Banana Laser, which is on Facebook, YouTube. It's on iTunes, Stitcher. If you haven't heard of Banana Laser, it's a great horror podcast directly streaming off of horrorfeely.com. And also check out the Skeleton Crew. Also, if you're a big horror fan, they're also on Facebook, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, all that good stuff. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and wrap this up. I just want to say thanks for listening, and as always, stay awesome and stay R-rated. Cheers. Rated R.